Today I will be discussing kinetic and manufacturing evaluations of DAPO production. Nautilus Engineering Services is located in Centerbrook, Connecticut, and we provide a broad range of services to support chemical process development, from chemical synthesis to scale-up and production. We are a growing chemical engineering company that blends chemistry, engineering, and analytics to develop solutions at scale. At the 100 milliliter scale, this dual addition was very labor-intensive and definitely not scalable. This dual addition caused other challenges in the process, including limiting the rate of the reaction by the mass transfer of hydroxylamine sulfate, and the results were not reproducible from one reaction to the next. Up to 40% of our yield would go towards the impurity, and the product we isolated would be low yielding and of low purity because the impurity would precipitate out along with our product. The mechanism of the reaction was key to developing the DynoChem model, and we determined the mechanism to DAPO to be the following. When hydroxylamine is added once to NBCMA, an intermediate is formed. When this intermediate is treated with triethylamine and the reaction is warmed, the intermediate cyclizes to DAPO. However, if another hydroxylamine adds to the other side of the intermediate, the impurity is formed and cannot be reverted back to the intermediate. Once the impurity is formed, we are losing yield to DAPO. When NBCMA is treated with triethylamine, decomposition occurs. Our goal is to maximize DAPO formation while minimizing starting material decomposition and impurity formation. Because triethylamine was necessary to cyclize the intermediate to DAPO, we used the optimization tool to determine the ideal amount of triethylamine to increase the yield of DAPO. Don't forget, the triethylamine also decomposed the starting material, so it was necessary to find the optimal balance between starting material decomposition and DAPO formation. The optimization tool found that doubling the amount of triethylamine had minimal impact on starting material decomposition at low temperatures, while also increasing the yield of DAPO once we warmed up the reaction. We also observed that this increase in triethylamine increased the solubility of the impurity, so the impurity would purge into the liquors, leaving us with very pure product after filtration. Following outputs of the kinetic model, we ran the reaction at 0 degrees C, using double the amount of triethylamine as in the original process. We monitored the reaction by HPLC and then compared the experimental values to the model prediction. You can see the experimental values we obtained, which are the points in the screenshot, matches the modeling prediction, which are the lines in the screenshot. We repeated the validation experiment twice and proved reproducibility of the reaction using the new conditions. Our isolated yields range from 65 to 67% of pure DAPO between 3 experiments. After validation of our DynoChem model, our process had significantly improved over the original process. Highlights of the improved process include all liquid doses of reagents, which can be easily automated. We were no longer limited by the mass transfer of solid hydroxylamine sulfate, and the formation of the intermediate was complete by the end of the aqueous hydroxylamine dose. We mitigated the decomposition of starting material by reducing the reaction temperature, as the model told us the decomposition reaction was highly temperature dependent. We were also able to reduce impurity formation by warming the reaction at the end of the hydroxylamine dose, and we obtained pure solids because the impurity purged into the reaction liquors when we used more triethylamine. We also input feed rates of each stream and feed rates between reactors, though we could optimize these later. Finally, we input the material and labor costs. From the model, we could acquire almost any information we wanted. Some of the information we obtained was yield of DAPO in each reactor, the temperature in each reactor, the overall cost of DAPO, and the amount of time it would take to produce 100 kilograms of DAPO. Earlier, we used a DynoChem optimization tool to determine how much triethylamine to add to our reaction. Here, we use it to optimize the feed rates of our reagents. There are many options for how to optimize the feed rates. For example, if our starting material was very expensive, we could optimize our feed rates to get the best yield of DAPO, thereby reducing any waste of expensive starting material. If we wanted to produce our material as quickly as possible, we could optimize the feed rates to increase throughput. In the example below, I have optimized the feed rates to reduce the time necessary to produce a certain quantity of DAPO. Here is an example of CSTR manufacturing in 3 50-liter reactors. I have optimized the feed rate to maximize the throughput while also maintaining the correct temperature and volume in each reactor. The optimized feed rate gave a 78% yield of DAPO in the third reactor with a throughput of 0.22 kilograms per hour at steady state. At this throughput, it takes 19 days to make 100 kilograms of product. Assuming the same labor costs and number of operators as in the batch process, the labor cost to make DAPO is $130 per hour, or $590 per kilogram. This table compares the batch and CSTR processes at the 50-liter scale. Though the yields are similar, the throughput in the CSTR process is much higher. Since the throughput is so much higher, the cost per kilogram of DAPO will be much lower in the CSTR process. When making 10 kilograms of DAPO using the batch process, it will take 3 batches, or 3.5 days. With the CSTR process, it will only take 2 days. As we produce more material, we will save even more time using the CSTR process over the batch process. We are currently working on a model to manufacture DAPO using the CSTR process at the 500-liter scale. At steady state, we get a throughput of 30.6 kilograms per hour, which gives us a significant reduction in the cost to DAPO, assuming we use the same labor rates and number of operators as at the 50-liter scale. The cost of DAPO at the 500-liter scale is $4.25 a kilogram, compared to the DAPO at the 50-liter scale, which was $590 a kilogram. We are still optimizing the model to see if we can improve the yield and throughput at this scale. We improved the chemistry by altering the order of addition and using all liquid feeds. The analytical methods we developed provide a deep understanding of the reaction mechanism and gave us data for our DynoChem model. The result of the DynoChem model led to vast improvements in the process, including decreasing the amount of starting material decomposition through lowering the reaction temperature and increasing the yield and purity of our product by optimizing the amount of triethylamine used. Best of all, we could use the same model to develop a continuous process and meet our goal of producing low-cost DAPO. We are currently making kilogram quantities of DAPO using a batch process as orders continue to come in.